1947. The world is still at war. There was a time when there was hope for an end to the Second World War. But that hope is long since forgotten. With the introduction of the Rift and the horrors that followed it, the war began to evolve at an alarming rate. With the advancements of the Rift and the ongoing arms race looking to utilize the newfound mysterious energy, the life of a basic infantryman is far from desirable. What was already an extremely perilous life in the pre-Rift stages of the war, the basic infantryman now faces horrors unlike which man have faced before, and all without any of the new safeties such as power armor, or new vehicles like the walker mechs and their armor plating. And that brings us to Jerry, a rifleman from the United States Army who has been lucky enough to survive this far into the war. Starting his military service in 1945 near what everyone thought was the end of the war, he found himself sailing over the Atlantic to France and was thrust headfirst into a bloody campaign against the Axis. After slowly pushing the Axis back using their new Firefly platoons, the Axis and his allies have found themselves in a bit of a stalemate with the winter season fast approaching. Both armies settle down and start planning for their springtime offenses. That being said, skirmishes and larger battles still occur, and there's an ever-growing need for recon on the front. Jerry has been given the honor of leading a small recon force to gather intel on enemy positions, movements, and even potential sabotage if the opportunity strikes. We start our journey with Jerry and his small group heading over on their nighttime recon operations. Hey, how's it going? Mike from Mike Rolls Dice, and welcome to our second episode of our Conflict 47 TTRPG adaptation here, using Savage Worlds. If you haven't watched the first episode, then be certain to go check it out as we explain how we came up with our character and who Jerry is, Jerry Campion, going over how we created our character for Savage Worlds, and as well as the supplements that we're going to be using for the scenario. But it's pretty simple. We're going to be using Savage Worlds here, the Adventure Edition, Suede as they call it, as well as the Mythic Emulator, which is going to be the way that we're going to emulate having a Game Master. So Jerry Campion, who is our basic rifleman here, I imagine that he would be on some sort of scenario to start off with. Now there's multiple ways we can go about it. We can kind of generate a scene, or we could start off with an expectation. I do think that in our background of creating Jerry, I think that he's kind of like a scout sort of guy, where he's going off in a small sort of infiltration group, and they're just kind of doing some recon to try and figure out where the enemy are. Jerry and his crew are somewhere near the Axis front line. I don't know necessarily where. We're going to have to figure out. Maybe we'll get some more information later. But I imagine he's somewhere near the front line in somewhat of the gray zone, where there's scouts from both sides trying to do some infiltration stuff and look for where enemy positions are to make attacks. So Jerry and his two compadres here are going to be probably heading up the road and off to a mission. But being that I'm the player here and not the game master, I need to figure out exactly what they're doing. I could just come up with something and say that they're doing this or that, but we do have the Mythic Emulator that's going to help us. So before we do anything, one of the things for Mythic, we need to set the chaos number to 5. And we are going to roll, and let's just see what exactly is Jerry and his two fellow soldiers here, these recon troops, doing. So what we need to do is we're just going to roll on our actions tables. So we're going to take our two D100s here. So we're going to roll here on the first meanings action table, and then we'll do the second one. Let's see. So we get an 11, which an 11 is befriend. Whoa, okay. And we get 72, which if we go to the second table will be plot. Plot and, or befriend and plot. All right, so here's the idea. Is Jerry and his two teammates are making their way up the road, the scout team. They're going to be probably talking to themselves, reminding each other of the mission perhaps. All right, guys, listen, remember, we're not trying to get noticed here. We're just trying to figure out what the enemy movements have been like, all right? But we have gotten reports of enemy scouts, sentries in our area as well as usual. Keep your heads on a swivel. Something like that. And as they're making their way up the road, I think what's going to happen is a fellow U.S. soldier runs out from the wood line. So I think this soldier is going to run out from the wood line, probably somewhat in a panic. Let's see, let's actually ask. Our chaos factor is 5, so we're just going to ask, we have our fate chart, which is essentially how we get yes or no answers. So we're just going to ask, I'm going to think it's a 50-50. Is the guy panicked or is he calm, cool, and collected? So we'll ask, is he panicked? We roll anything under, that's a yes. Anything above is a no. So we get a 19, which is not an astounding yes, but it is a yes. So he is panicked. I believe I asked if he's panicked, right? So either way, we'll say yes, he is panicked as he comes out of the woods, screaming, thank God I found you guys. Look, the Axis. I was in a forward position in a foxhole, and I woke up in the middle of the night. It's probably nighttime, right? They're out doing missions. They're somewhere near the front line, so there's probably troops positioned in places. And perhaps he wakes up in the middle of the night to a Axis soldier taking a knife to his buddy in the next foxhole over. And he sees and he's able to get away and run away, but the Axis are launching an assault on some forward positions, and looks like they're making their way up the road, perhaps. Or, yeah, they're going to be making their way up the road, it looks like. Probably here in a little bit, assumably. So this troop explains all that to Jerry and his two scouts, and they're just scouts. They're not necessarily meant to get involved in this action. But Jerry's going to ask them, all right, calm down. But look, what's the ETA on these guys? When are they coming? Let's see. Let's ask, like, how far behind are these guys? Are they about to bust out of the bushes, or are they about to crest over the hill on the other side of the road? Let's ask. I'm gonna say this guy was in a panic, not in a super panic, but he was in a panic. So I'm gonna make it. Let's just leave it 50-50 and see what happens. We get a 69. No, so they're not about to crest over, but they're probably a little ways away, so they have a little bit of time to try and get out of there. Jerry and his team, they are sentries. They are like kind of scouts. Perhaps they have some way of potentially trying to slow down the Axis, because they could just get out of there, but they are supposed to be somewhat productive on their mission. So I guess they could go back and tell. But perhaps what they do is, I'm going to see, do they have like a satchel charge they can set up like an ambush or something? Because that sounds kind of cool. I know Jerry doesn't, because we have what sort of items he has on his sheet. But, I'm just going to ask. I mean, let's make it unlikely. So it's going to be a 35. But with a 20 they do, and that's why I ask. So they do have a satchel charge. So I think what Jerry's going to do is, this guy's in a panic, right? And he's not necessarily meant for this sort of stuff. He was just potentially in a foxhole somewhere off, near the front line. But perhaps maybe this is like off towards Axis-controlled territory. Maybe he ran the wrong way. So Jerry's going to tell him, all right, you listen. First off, you're heading the wrong way. So second off, you go back to command. I'll tell you you head down this path, this and that. You tell them that the Axis are on their way, but we're going to set up an ambush with this satchel charge. Even though this guy, I don't know what the ranks are, they're probably all pretty, not necessarily high ranking. I think this guy doesn't want anything to do with getting attacked by the Axis in the middle of the night. So he's probably going to obey, and he's going to go run off and tell the HQ what's going on. But Jerry takes his two boys, and they're going to move up, and there's this barricade here in the center. So this barricade in the center here is kind of an obstruction. It's like some wire in the road and a little cratering. So the Axis engineers are probably going to have to do something about it. Because imagine there's woods. I'm assuming there's woods kind of like fairly dense on either side, and there's this one road. That's just how I'm picturing it. They're somewhere either in France or Germany. In fact, let's ask, are they in France? 50-50. 69, 96, resounding no. They are most definitely not in France, or they're further into Axis territory, into the Green Vault sort of territory, in a fairly hostile zone. Maybe they've taken some territory. But what they do is they need to plant a satchel charge. So, for that, We're gonna make them do a roll. Now this is, what sort of roll would we want them to do? Jerry has different skills and all that. It would probably be some sort of like mechanical roll, but I mean they are soldiers that are trained in these sort of things. So you know what? I'm just gonna give them just a straight up common knowledge roll. It's probably semi-advanced training, but nothing crazy, right? He's still just a regular dude, but due to the war, you know, he's been sent, you know, hey, you three guys, you got to go scout, you know, and you guys are the most competent out of our bunch. All right, so with that being said, we're going to do a roll for Savage World. Now, Jerry is a wild card, so he does get a D6 with whatever skill or trait roll he has. And for his common knowledge is a 6. This is kind of whether or not he remembers from basic training how good he remembers that placing the satchel charge. I think one of his buddies comes over. The other guy's going to keep watch, perhaps keep an eye out, and he's going to hand Jerry a satchel charge. We could learn their names, but Jerry's learned not to get too attached to his fellow soldiers because it seems like they rotate out pretty quick, but not due to regular circumstances. Probably a Schwerfield cannon. So that being said, let's make a roll here. Now we're looking for a 4 to succeed. I'm not gonna, normally you just are looking for a target number of 4 in Savage Worlds to succeed. And if it's easier, you essentially add a bonus to your roll. If it's harder, you add a minus to your roll. I'm just gonna say they're gonna need a 4 here. So we're gonna roll 2d6, and because one's a wild card die and one's his trait roll or his skill die. And as long as he gets a 4, then he's gonna be good. And he gets a 3 on the wild card die, but on his skill die, he gets a 4. So he successfully takes out the satchel charge. He probably carefully primes it or whatever he needs to do to rig it up in a way that it can go off. Because I'm assuming what's going to happen, this barbed wire is not too crazy. It's mostly to stop infantry. But the Axis obviously probably have some Panzers, some Vogelspinners, some sort of walkers, whatever. And the idea is they're probably not going to take the time to move all the small barbed wire obstacle. They're probably just going to crush it. And that's when a vehicle's going to go over it, and it'll be like an improvised anti-tank mine in that manner. So he does successfully place it. So the question is, I don't, like, how would they trigger it? Maybe, like, does he have the capability, or are they going to have to, like, maybe... Do they have to stay to trigger it? That's the thing, because they could set it up, but I don't know. Maybe there's, like, a remote cord. I'm going to ask, because I don't think they maybe have the technology to do some sort of, like, makeshift pressure mine. So it's probably pretty likely. I'm going to say it's likely, a 65 or less, that they have to be close enough to trigger it when the ambush happens. It's pretty risky, but maybe they could do it far enough away and then they could fall off into the woods, right? With a 33, then yes, they do need to stay within a certain distance to do it. So it is going to be tricky that they have to stick around. They know that they've told the other soldier to go back and tell HQ that, you know, they need to go and essentially get ready, that the Axis are coming. And we'll say probably Jerry told him too, listen, maybe send some reinforcements too, you know? Maybe send some of the boys from the barracks and maybe a couple Shermans, maybe a Tesla one up the road. That being said, though, they need to stick around. So we know the Axis, they had enough time. It's probably taken like 5 minutes or so to set this up. They're keeping watch. I think probably in this time, the Axis is going to be showing up. Now there's still like, there's a hill over this road, right? That they essentially still need to get to, or to get up to. So it's pretty far distance, but they're probably going to go off now and go maybe hide somewhere, probably not too close to the explosion radius. So let's just say somewhere behind this brick walls over here. Jerry and his crew is going to go and set up for this ambush. Now, the idea is they're not necessarily going to shoot at the, like, I guess it depends, but depending on the size of the force, it sounded like it was pretty big. They're going to trigger this, take out the lead vehicle, and then slow down the Axis so that the Americans can reinforce the area. That's the idea, okay? So, with that being said, let's see, are the Axis showing up right now? I'm going to say... You know what? I'm not even going to roll. I'm going to say yes, the Axis are going to show up. Now, the question is it a big force? Is it a smaller, you know, expeditionary, like, Panzer force? Or, like, you know, recon force? Because he did mention there were some vehicles, but maybe it was, like, some command vehicle sort of stuff, and it was a smaller mobile recon force. Who knows? Or is it a large force? So let's ask it. Is it a large fighting force? I'll just say 50-50. With a 41, yes, it is a fairly large force, so it's probably like maybe a platoon-sized force that is making way, you know, onto the American positions, probably trying to take back Axis territory that was taken from them. So with that being said, we're gonna need to get some enemies. All right, well, it looks like we have our enemy column that is moving up the road, and we have a Panzer IV equipped with a Schwerfield cannon and some MG-34s, as well as a Hanomag with some Volksgrenadiers in it and some Volksgrenadier infantry to protect the vehicles. And Jerry and his poor two friends, which have just seen that they've set up a satchel charge for a very large enemy column that's moving up the road here. So now the question is, what I want to know, because this is important, I did a little research. A satchel charge does 46 damage. That's pretty good. But a Panzer IV is 26 toughness, I'm sorry, and the half track is 12 toughness. So we're gonna add up our damage roll together with the 4d6. And there's exploding dice, something we haven't mentioned, but I want to know, is the Panzer in the front of the column, or is the half track in the front? Because that's going to make a big difference for a satchel charge. Remember, they're not trying to take this force head on. They're trying to blow up the front vehicle and get out of dodge, if they can. So let's see. It's 50-50. I'm going to ask, is the Panzer first? With a 57, no. It turns out the half track took the turn, or maybe the command vehicle, perhaps, or the Volksgrenadiers are leading the way to protect the Panzer IV that is actually in the lead. Jerry has probably a trigger or something, some way of detonating this satchel charge. And the Hanomag, it has, let's just say maybe this obstruction is small enough, it's not that big of a deal. They're able to pretty much go over it. And the front tires, maybe they've developed unpuncturable front tires for the Axis now. I mean, they have Schwerfield cannons, right? But they're going to essentially kind of go over this structure here, and as they approach it and the front of the vehicle, we'll say they're probably when they're right on top of it and they're kind of going over it.
Forward hands! Careful now. We shall take back this land from the Americans. Now move it!
And as they're going over this structure here, this small obstruction in the road is really nothing, Jerry's gonna hit the trigger on the satchel charge. Now, he did set it up successfully, but maybe the road's damp, maybe the cordage got wet, I don't know, we're gonna find out. I'm gonna make a roll in Savage Worlds. I'll tell you why, we have a Benny. We have 3 Bennies. We can use it to re-roll something if we need to. Potentially to damage as well, so I think this is him. He's set it up, now he's kind of making sure that the wire and the detonator set up properly. So let's see what happens. He's gonna need a 4 to trigger this. And he gets 2 2s. So I think he clicks. Click, click. Click, click. And the satchel doesn't go off. So he's thinking, oh god, this is not good. But luckily, us watching over him are rooting for our hero here. I am going to spend a Benny and let him re-roll this. That's what you can do with a Benny. So I'm going to re-roll this here, and I can re-roll both die. And we're looking for a 4. And he rolls 2 1s, which in Savage Worlds, when you get 2 1s on both your die, that's a critical failure. And you cannot spend a Benny to reroll critical failures. We already spent a Benny to reroll it. So I think what happens is not only do the satchels not go off, but as the vehicle is making it over, and the vehicle's now like completely crossing over, all the other infantry have moved up, you know, la-di-da-di-da, no problems. I think what's going to happen is, for some reason, they see or they spot Jerry and his buddies. And maybe one of the Axis have made it off to the side, and they can kind of see silhouette and figures. And maybe these guys everything's going wrong at once here. The guys in the half track actually see like the cordage, because maybe they have some sort of illumination lighting as they're going down the road, and they can see the cordage, and they follow the cordage with the light all the way to Jerry and his position right there. And the guy up front, or the guy in the back's like, Americans! So their cover is completely blown, and now they're gonna go into combat. Oh, we rolled a critical failure, oh no. I should have just used the Mythic GM, ask him if it explodes or not. The satchel charge is still there. I'm gonna ask, is it still, like, can it still function, or is it completely shot? We'll just ask 50-50. Is it functional? No, it's not. The satchel charge was completely botched. Something happened. Maybe they ran over the cordage with the half track. So unless they can trigger it manually, they can't use the detonator in any shape or form. All right, so we're gonna go into combat. I'm gonna let you know this is really bad. I didn't even plan for this to happen. There is a Schwerfield cannon on the board, and I have no idea how to represent that. But yeah, this is gonna be interesting. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a deck of cards here. I'm gonna shuffle it up real quick. And the way it's gonna work is I'm gonna give Jerry a card because he's a wild card. I'm gonna give the Panzer IV and the other vehicle a card because these are wild cards. They're like pretty big enemies. Everybody else is gonna be extras. So all the Volks Grenadiers, they're all gonna like act at once. Jerry's guys are gonna act at once, essentially, is how we're gonna do it. So I could give a card to Jerry's guys, but we're just going to consider them to be extras. I was wondering how Jerry would end up in a sticky situation, and it looks like we found out how. This does not look good. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to give some cards. So for Jerry's card, he gets a 8 of spades, or 8 of clubs. Then for the German, we'll start off with the half track, 6 of spades. A 2 of hearts for the Panzer, and for the extras, a 3 of... So that being said, normally the way it goes is it goes from the highest cards down to the lowest, with the Joker always being like the crazy... If you get a Joker, you get +2 on everything, including damage, and you get to go at any point. But it usually goes highest card to lowest, so it's actually funny, we pulled almost in that manner, but Jerry is going to go first, and then the half track, then the extras, and then the Panzer in the rear, which kind of makes sense. You don't want to blow up their own guys. So this is going to be our first round of combat, if you will. So that being said, Jerry, what does he need to do? Now, one thing to note here, I want to let you know, we have some hindrances for Jerry, which means these are his things that will negatively affect him. Doesn't mean it's a negative trait, but it means that it's going to affect the way that we play with the character. So he has heroic, which is a major hindrance, and what that does is that means, the way I picture it, he's going to do what he needs to do to make sure his guys stay alive or try and get out of there. He's heroic, and he wants to do the best he can to make sure people are safe and things like that. And he's going to put himself on the line for other people. That being said, what is he going to do with that mindset? I think he's going to try and figure out how to trigger the satchel charge. But I'm assuming if he can somehow get it to explode with another explosion, maybe it'll trigger, because it is a volatile explosive. He doesn't have any grenades on him. Well, I'm going to ask. It didn't say that when we built the character. I actually just kind of picked from the Weird Wars 2 supplement a standard infantry loadout that they give. It doesn't say grenades. I'm going to ask him, though. He had a satchel charge, his buddy. Maybe he'll ask him if he's got a grenade. Let's see. Did they have a grenade? We're going to keep it 50-50 here. And exactly on the money, 50. Yes, if we roll, I think if we rolled a number or under, I don't exactly remember, but I'm going to say yes. They do have a grenade, but it's probably an old, crusty grenade that they maybe even got off an enemy troop at some point. Jerry has 6 inches of movement, because that's how the movement works. And he's got 6 inches of movement. He has an M1 Garand and a bayonet. So he's going to go first. I think he's going to take this grenade from his buddy. Not the best grenade, but it's still a grenade. And he's going to move 6.
I'll handle this. Stay back.
So what he's going to do here, let's just move him 6. Because everything's measured in actual inches in Savage Worlds.
Damn satchel charge. Take this, you Axis bastards.
So he's going to move. Now, the way movement works, you can move at like any point in your turn. So you can move like a couple inches, shoot, and do all that. So he moved. He's got about like an inch left or something here, but he moved up. He's got some cover and whatnot. Everything's kicking off right now. The Axis, they're going nuts. There's Volks Grenadiers shouting, "Americans!" You know, and Jerry and his crew, they're freaking out. He grabs this grenade. He's going to run up, and he's going to throw a grenade and see if he can land it right at the satchel. I know there's like certain grenade rules. I can look it up. I'm not going to worry about that. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna make a roll, a shooting roll, and then I'm just gonna ask, depending on how good his roll is, we're gonna ask the Mythic if it lands in the spot, okay? Because I can look up, there's like deviation to grenade throwing and all that. I don't want to slow down my gameplay. I like using the Mythic when I don't know the rules. That's one of the cool things about the Mythic GM emulator. He did move. He's just only... Oh, I need to declare what actions I'm going to do. Is he going to shoot this Volksgrenadier in front of him? I think he's just going to try and spend all of his energy to get this grenade in there. And if it explodes, it's going to be a pretty big explosion. And he's going to be able to get out of there. So let's go for it. He needs a 4 here. 1 on the wild card, but he does get a 4, so he does manage to get this grenade. It's not a crazy grenade throw, but he does manage to throw it. Again, I could look up all the grenade throwing rules for Savage Worlds, but what we're gonna do is we're just gonna ask the Mythic. So because it's not that crazy, but he did, he did succeed. That's why I'm giving him the chance. Let's just say it's 50-50. Does the grenade manage to get the satchel charge to go off? If not, we'll just have it maybe, do a damage roll around the vehicle, or we'll find out where it goes. We'll just ask. So does it damage the satchel charge, 50 or less? 61, no. It probably does explode, but maybe it's not enough to set off the satchel charge, or it does roll off to the side a little bit. Let's just say it rolls off somewhere around here, and we're gonna figure out what's a grenade. What's a standard grenade damage? Because the half track is 12, I think, damage. They have a Mark II World War II pineapple grenade. It's 3d6, and we were within range to throw it without a penalty, which is good. Medium blast template, okay, which is pretty big, honestly. This grenade's actually pretty big. I'm surprised it's not gonna set off this this darn satchel charge. That being said, it's 3d6. So we're gonna roll our d6 here. And we get a 3, a 3, and a 1. Now we have the blast template. I think this just counts for everybody. I'll take a look because I do want to figure this out. But it lands somewhere around here. Now the guys in the, we'll just say it's definitely not enough damage to do to the half track. But there is some guys in the half track. We'll just say I'm just gonna say it's an armored vehicle. It protects them from the shrapnel. We don't even need to say anything. This has been a disaster. We're done. Okay, so this is really not going well. I really was hoping that the grenade was going to do something there, but, that's the way it goes. So now the half track, which makes sense. I love how the half track's going next. And a grenade explodes right next to them. Jerry has run up within, I don't know, 8 to 10 yards. He's thrown this grenade from the other side of the brick wall. This Volksgrenadier is going to turn and see him. But this half track, though, sees him, and the MMG that's on top, let's see, does it have enough swivel range? It's a front mounted. It's not on there, but that's how I usually play them. It doesn't look like the MMG in the front can do anything, but the Volksgrenadiers inside are going to take a shot because we're just treating it as one. Let's see, how do we do this here? Let's just give it a rate of fire of 3 here. We're just going to roll the 3 shots right at Jerry and see what happens. I'll be honest with you, this is pretty bad. Let's find out. And it is looking for, we'll give it a shooting of d6, because why not? Which is going to be 3 attacks. I would give it a wild card. We're just going to roll 3 attacks. Keep it simple. And look at that. We got a 5, a 2, and a 6. With the 6, we roll it again, and it gets a 4. So that's actually a raise. So we get 2 hits and a raise. Now we need to figure out what an MG34 machine gun damage-wise does to a basic infantryman. There is a wall in front, so that is going to affect the damage here. He does have some cover, at least. It's not an MG. Yeah, let's just do an MG42 because we got it here. It is 2d8 damage plus 1. So we're going to roll our damage here. We're going to subtract a cinder block walls plus 6. Or a stone wall, I should say, is 10. So let's see. So he's not completely screwed here, but that's going to be 6 and 7 and 3. So 10, 16 damage, but minus... So they shoot an MG42 at the brick wall or at the stone wall here, the cobblestone wall, and the wall just gets shredded. And a couple of the rounds make it through and actually hit him. So it's 6 damage. His toughness is 7, luckily, because he has 7 toughness with 2 of it being from his helmet. There is AP2, so we subtract that from the armor. I think, does he actually get hit here? Because of the armor pen and the way it works, he would have taken 6 damage, but he has toughness 7, 2 of it from the armor. So I think he is, yes, he is going to take damage. The way it works is you need, if you take your damage value or over by 3, then you get shaken. So essentially every 4 over on things is like a raise. So the way the wounds work, if he took, let's say, an additional 4 damage, then he would have a wound, and he has 3 wounds total. But what's going to happen is he's shaken. So that's going to mean, give him a little token. That means that he's going to have to essentially either make a roll to stop being shaken on the start of his turn, or he's going to have to spend a Benny. So he's getting, it's like being pinned in bolt action. Okay. So the half-track shooting, and you know what? After it shoots, it's probably going to move up a little bit because they've figured out there's some sort of, like, ambush that's happening. So now it is the extra's turn. There's a bunch of dudes with guns. I'm not going to roll for everybody. I think what they're going to do is they're going to try and lay down some fire. So we're just going to make some rolls overall for everybody and see if they can take some people out. I think they're going to try and take Jerry hostage. Or capture him, because it's always good to get some enemy intel. They can ask him, where are your other forces, where you're located, this and that, how many more Americans are there. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to fire at Jerry's boys here. Let's just make 1 roll for Jerry and his boy, and we'll make 2 rolls for the other guys. The red dice will be, the green dice will be Jerry and his boys. Whoever gets more successes, or a higher success, will do some damage. Let's find out. And Jerry and his crew end up doing a little bit better. So we'll say they're probably shooting at each other, returning fire, but there's nothing really. It's just, there's a crazy firefight going on right now with the Volks Grenadiers. They're probably moving up, moving around position. Jerry's guys are probably taking cover, spreading out a little bit in case there's any explosions. And these guys probably move out of the way for the Panzers. Okay, so now it's the Panzer IV's turn with a Schwerfield cannon. And I think what it's going to do is it's going to roll its... I bet you there's radio comms in that front vehicle. And is the Panzer IV going to attempt to go over it, or is it going to stay put knowing there's a satchel charge? Let's find out. Is the vehicle going to drive over it knowing there's a satchel charge? Probably not. I'm going to say it's unlikely. 35 or under. With a 52, no. They're going to, in fact, they might move back a little bit. You know what I mean? Just let's move back from that giant explosion that might happen in the area. What they are going to do is they're going to take this cone. It looks like they have a clear shot, so I'm just going to say yes. So I'm going to fire. It's probably going to be some sort of blast template weapon. Let's just see if it's successful. We're going to give it is a wild card, so I'm giving it 2 dice here, but we're just going to say it needs a 4 here to hit, essentially. Because I don't think it ignores cover and all that, because we're just coming up with that for the Schwerfield, so, because there's no Schwerfield cannon in Savage Worlds. And it does get a 4, so it does hit. So let's just say I'm coming up with the rules here. It's going to be a probably quite large, like a medium blast template, like so. And then it's probably, let's just say, it's not overloaded, right? So let's just say, let's say 3d6, and we're going to add 2 to the result. I'm just coming up with it. Let's find out. So that is 8 plus 3, plus another 3, I think we said. So that is going to be 14 damage. And versus toughness 7, that actually takes these guys out. They're not wild cards. They're toughness 7. That's enough to actually... So let's see. Toughness 7. You go 4 over. That's 11. That's enough to do a wound. And yeah, they actually take even more damage. So these guys are absolutely toast. They're completely smeared. In fact, they're probably evaporated. Maybe there's just boots left. Rip those guys. Again, that's why Jerry hasn't learned a lot of those guys' names. They were just replaced yesterday. We're gonna go for another round of combat. Okay. Everything's going well so far. There's just a full platoon, an armored platoon, going down the road. So we got Jerry, who's a 5. We got an ace for the half track. a 6 for the Panzer of diamonds, and a queen. So it's actually of diamonds. So it looks like the half track's going first here. And you know what? I think it's going to fire some rounds at Jerry. It's going to perhaps turn its, do like an about face here with the tracks. And because it's been preparing, and it's going to fire its MG at Jerry. So let's see, it's looking for a 4 here. It did use its movement. You know what though? We'll show you. This is a multi-action. So you can take up to 3 actions, and some actions are free, but like shooting and like doing stuff, it's gonna apply a minus for each additional. So they're gonna take 2 actions. They're gonna fire 2 bursts at the at Jerry. So it's rate of fire. We'll just say rate of fire of 3, and it needs to. Essentially, it's going to have a -2 for each action that it takes. So they're going to be at a -2 to this result. Looking for 4s. Oh, we get a 5. That won't hit. A 2 won't, but a 6 explodes. That will. Into another 6. Into a 1. So that's a total of -2. 13 -2. So that's an 11 on the result. So that's going to be a successful damage roll with the MG42. Which was 2d8 plus 1, I think. A raise, they're going to roll an extra d6. And this time they moved, the wall's not in the way. Jerry's in trouble here. And we get a result of 1, so 4, 9, and then what was the MG, I think? It was like plus... Yeah, it was plus 2 AP, so it negates his helmet. And it was 2d8 plus 1. So it's going to be 10 damage, and he's only toughness 5 technically because his armor is negated. So that means that he actually takes, he's already shaken. He hasn't been able to get rid of it. Now I think, can he spend a Benny at any time to get rid of it, or is it when he activates? Any time, even interrupting another action. He's going to spend a Benny and get unshaken here, just so that what's going to happen is he's really only going to take 1 wound instead of taking 2 wounds right now. I'm going to do it like this. I'm just going to do it like that. He does get shaken again, and now he takes 1 wound. I don't know what the right way to maybe do it would be. Maybe just try and soak the rolls, but then I would need to try and pass it. So soaking rolls, I just need to make a vigor check. I'm gonna do it this way. We're going to spend a Benny, remove his shaken status. They shoot the MG at him. He kind of just catches himself. Immediately, another volley of MG fire hits him. Oh my god, and they're going to shoot again, I forgot. They're doing another round, but it's -2. Come on. Oh, that's not the right dice. Oh, they had to get a 6. I had to roll the wrong one. So that's a 10 -2 is an 8. So that's actually, again, a success with a raise. So they're going to roll 2d8 plus 1 damage and the extra d6. If you haven't realized... Oh my god, they got an 8. Oh! So, let's see here. That's 12, 19, 22 damage. He's shaken. He already has a wound. Yeah, so the way I run Savage Worlds, technically the way it just normally works is you can just instantly die at this point. So if you take 3 wounds in one shot and you take that 4th wound, you can have up to 3 wounds essentially, but when you get that 4th wound, you essentially get knocked unconscious. He's not going to like instantly die, but he's going to be out of action. The way I do it usually is that you can take up to 3 wounds in one shot. Now he already does have a wound though, so you know what? I'm going to say he is, but you know what? He already has a wound, and he's taken 3 wounds at point blank range essentially. So I think he's going to have to spend his Benny here to try and soak some damage is what he's going to have to do. So let's see. We're going to make a vigor check. So it's 2d6 here. And if he can get every success in a raise, he can negate some of these wounds coming in. He gets a success, and he gets another success with a 6. But we're going to roll again. If he gets 2 more, that's another raise. He does. He actually negates 3 wounds. So he's able to, if he removes all the wounds from his attack, he removes his shaken condition too. Woo! Even from a previous source. Let's go. He just, somehow, he dives probably like whoosh, off into the bushes or something, we'll just say, as the machine gun fire almost cuts right through him. Oh my god, I'm happy I did the soak roll. He's out of bennies, though. And now it's a Panzer IV. And it's not looking good. He still has a wound, by the way. We got to give him a wound here. Because when you're wounded, man, it's really rough in this game. Oh, no, it's -1. Okay, so for each wound, up to 3. The Panzer now, though, is going to fire. I think at this point, Jerry needs to think what he needs to do. Like, this Panzer's about to fire. It seems like they're absolutely... Oh, let's ask. Are they going to try and, like, take him out? Or do they want to capture him? Because this would be a good opportunity to just essentially capture him. Instead of... Because that way they could get the intel like we talked about. I'm going to make it pretty likely they aren't... This Panzer IV turret operator isn't about to blast Jerry to pieces. So let's find out. Very likely that he's going to not shoot him and they're going to try and capture him is 75 or under. And 78. Screw the orders of the captain to capture... at least keep one American alive to find out if they have the orders. Maybe his buddies got taken out in an ambush from some Paragons or something like that. And you know what? He doesn't care. He's going to fire that Schwerfield cannon. Let's see what happens. They need a 4 here. A 5 and a 6. So you take one of them for your roll. So that's a 7. It's not a raise, but it does hit. And what did we say it was? It was 3d6 plus 3, I think it was. Oh my god. So that's, I mean, that's honestly not the worst. It's going to be 7, oh, 10, yeah. 10. And his toughness is 7. And we're not getting any cover or anything from this. So he's already wounded, but he's not shaken, so now he's going to be shaken, essentially. All right. Not even Jerry's turn. It's the Volksgrenadiers. I think what's going to happen is the Volksgrenadiers just saw this Schwerfield cannon. What happened is, by the way, the Schwerfield cannon fires, but it probably hits right behind him. And Jerry still takes some damage, essentially. He doesn't take enough damage to, you know, put him out of the fight or add another wound, but it's enough to just completely, you know, scramble his brain, this rift explosion. So I think what's going to happen, these Volksgrenadiers, they are going to follow their orders, and they're going to move up. And this guy right here, they're going to try and capture Jerry, essentially. Is he going... We need to think. Is Jerry going to surrender? They're essentially going to run up at gunpoint, and they're going to... Let's see how good they do it. Let's give them a roll. Just like a generic roll. A 3. They're like... "Ah, put your hands out," you know, screaming. And Jerry understands some broken German. But it's like fair. It's a little disorganized, you know. They're still a little caught off guard from the ambush, quote unquote, and the grenade that went off that scared all of them a little bit. They're younger, you know, Fallschirmjägers or something, replacements. But they do run up, and they're telling him to surrender. So we need to think about what he's going to do, because if not, they're essentially running up and saying, "All right, give up." Otherwise, I'm just going to say they're going to essentially be able to shoot at him when he goes. So the question is Jerry going to surrender? He is essentially surrounded. There's some woods he could try and run off to and lead into a chase. But, you know, does he want to die right now, essentially? Because that's essentially what's going to happen. He's got 5 dudes with rifles and assault rifles pointed at him and a couple armored vehicles. I need to determine what Jerry would do, so I could think about it myself. But, you know, let's see what our character would do here. I think it's unlikely. He is heroic, though. So you know what? Let's just leave it 50-50. I'm not going to modify it. Does Jerry try to dash off into the woods? Almost certainly he's just going to get lit up. Let's see what happens. 50-50. And a 56, no, he doesn't. So what he does is he takes his M1 Garand, he drops it to the ground, takes the bayonet out of its holder, he drops it. He like opens his winter coat or his heavy coat because it's autumn, and I think he's just gonna put his hands up. All right, take it easy. Probably says in broken German, by the way. And you know what? For fun, let's see how good his German is, because we'll give him a language roll. He's got a language of D4. Let's see how good he says it, just for fun. I want to know how good he is at German. You know what I mean? Oh, he gets a 6. Hold on. Now he gets -2 to his persuasion. He's not doing persuasion roll, but he gets an 8. So he actually does very good. He's like, they're almost surprised with how good his German is. It's not like crazy, but he knows how to say, he's practiced this. Please don't kill me, all right? Whatever you do, please don't shoot. He said that part flawlessly. So he did a great job with that. That being said, he is wounded, and so that means he's got a wound, and, you know, it's a bullet wound probably to maybe a shoulder or something, or an abdomen. And I think what's going to happen is these Volksgrenadiers are going to essentially make their way up, and they're going to capture him and make sure he doesn't get away. And you know what, I bet you the platoon commander that's riding in the half-track command, he hops out as well, and he's probably going to approach and talk to Jerry. Ah, you stupid Americans. What are you doing on this road? Don't you know this is Axis land? Something to that matter, we'll figure it out. And yeah, so that being said, Jerry has been captured on his little recon trip, trying to determine what the Axis were up to in the area. And it turns out there's a mechanized platoon that is heading their way in a huge attack to take back Axis territory. And now he is a prisoner, and something tells me they're going to take him further into Axis territory, either to some sort of prisoner war camp, or God knows what the Axis do to their allied prisoners nowadays. So they're going to take him off, and they're going to wheel him out. They probably even throw him in the half-track. Sorry, Hans, you have to get out for now. But the American is wounded, and the colonel will want to see him. I am sure of it. And they wheel right off. And probably these guys keep moving forward with their attack with the Panzer or something. And Jerry's thinking, what the hell did I get myself into? As he looks back and his buddies are laying there face down in the dirt. All right, well, there you go. That's our first little encounter here with Savage Worlds. I was wondering what was going to happen, what was going to lead up to, because I knew that it's fun to have, we could play Jerry and have him around with a full platoon of Americans, but I think he's going to have to go off on his own journey. And it looks like he's not choosing his own path. Looks like the Axis are going to find out for him. So we'll see what happens in the next episode. Oh, it appears you are wounded, our American friend. Don't worry. We have just the place to take you. The doctor will stitch you right up.